Иди к слепым. Они знают ответы. Найди их, и ты найдешь историю своей судьбы.
I got some bad news, y'all. This video is going to be quite a departure from my usual stuff, because I didn't actually finish playing the game before writing this up. I wish I could, but the game will just not let me progress. I'm still doing this video because I need you to understand my struggle. You ever look at a game and know, deep in your bones, that it was meant for you? That's what I felt the moment I found Collapse on Steam. This game is my white whale. I've been wanting to cover it for ages, but it's so full of Eurojank that it's basically impenetrable. I got it on Steam a while back, but every time I played it, my PC would softlock. And not like a crash to desktop issue, the game would stall and hold my mouse cursor hostage. I had to reboot my PC in order to free it, and it was always terrifying when it happened, which was whenever I had to load from a checkpoint. I increased my RAM recently, so now when the game crashes, it only does so to desktop, and doesn't hold my PC hostage anymore. But after clearing one obstacle, I'm faced with another, and I can't progress after a specific point in the game. I actually contacted the game's developers, who are now settled into maintaining a casual soccer game on Steam. Surprisingly, they responded to my email and said that, while they appreciate the interest in their game, they had no intention of continuing the support for it, and couldn't provide a fix for getting it to behave on Windows 7 or 10. Cool guys overall. Definitely check out that soccer game if you're into that stuff. I'll put a link in this video's description. So what is this game that's captured my attention and haunted my dreams? Collapse is a 2008 action-adventure game by Ukrainian developers Creo Team, and published by Buka Entertainment. You play as Rodan, the last of the Lords, which are an upper class of sorts that live among the people in a post-apocalyptic wasteland known as the Dump. He's got amnesia, probably from surviving 2 separate assassination attempts involving bombs, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Just take a glimpse at this intro and you'll see why this game speaks to me.
Надеюсь, все понимают, зачем мы здесь собрались. Кто-то подстроил взрыв, унесший жизни всех лордов. И теперь на свалке идет междоусобная резня.
Господа, у нас есть 2 варианта. Мы можем и дальше продолжать убивать друг друга. Или мы наконец-то объединимся.
Опять эти разговоры об объединении. Гибель лордов еще не означает, что каждый у себя в клане не сможет навести порядок. Элементарный.
Порядок? Порядок? Клан Железного Лорда был одним из самых сильных на свалке. А теперь люди бегут оттуда благодаря твоим порядкам.
Пожалуйста, успокойтесь.
I love this cutscene. These guys are having a meeting that will affect the power structure of the surrounding society over a coffee table. Check out the tubby dude at the far end, wearing Serious Sam 3 shades. He looks like those edits of Mike Stoklasa as Doom Guy. Look how tiny the font is for the subtitles. I've tried getting this game from other sources just to see if the stability is any better, but getting it anywhere besides Steam will usually result in the Russian version, which doesn't have support for English, either in menu text or subtitles. The Russian subtitles are equally minuscule. I've taken the liberty to overwrite the same dialogue with larger text, but I don't think it really matters, as the game's plot is meant to be obfuscating, to draw you in. Anyways, worlds ended and factions have formed involving a hierarchy with an upper caste known as the Lords. These guys seem to be the heads of all the various factions, and they're determining how things should be now that the Lords have all been wiped out. But it turns out that one of them actually did survive.
Родан, последний лорд внутреннего круга.
Этого не может быть. Лорды погибли все. В таком взрыве невозможно уцелеть.
Как видишь, смерть меня боится, Марк.
Времена, когда лорды правили большой землей, давно прошли. Столько лет они дурили нам головы, используя своих меркантильных интересов. А они это прошлое, которое надо забыть.
Послушай, толстяк, у тебя слишком короткая память и длинный язык. Эти две причины всегда мешали тебе жить.
Будьте же благоразумны! Родан, пожалуйста, спрячь клинок. Ты же знаешь наши правила. Никакого оружия на сходке. Никакого оружия на сходке. Никакого оружия на сходке.
Even though this dude wants them to recognize Rodan as the one who should lead the survivors, Rodan himself looks like he needs to work on his bedside manner. This monsoon-looking dude seems to be surprised to know that Rodan survived, and accused him of setting up the other lords, and then immediately tips his hand by saying something coy just before a bomb goes off in the room. This is where the game begins. Turns out that everyone decided to leave Rodan behind and make off for themselves. Combat in Collapse comprises of a mix of melee and shooting mechanics. It plays exactly how you'd expect a third-person shooter would play on a PC. You can ADS, which is only really important for intermediate range encounters, but for the most part, you can hipfire and land shots. Rodan can only carry one long arm and one sidearm. This doesn't really become an issue until a little later in the campaign. You switch between guns by pressing either 2 or 3 on the keyboard, or between left and right buttons on the D-pad if you're using a controller. Pressing either Q or 1 on the keyboard, or clicking in the controller's right stick, makes Rodan switch from his equipped gun to the blade that's fixed to his bracer, and will tuck away when you use your guns. When it comes to third-person action games, you can usually tell within a few minutes whether the game was primarily designed for PC or console in mind, and Collapse was very clearly designed for PC. Although the melee combos have elaborate animations, there's no real weight to the hits. Rodan just starts twirling, and will keep twirling through attacks. I tend to prefer using a controller for third-person games, unless it's really obvious that the game was meant to be played on a keyboard. With Collapse, I actually swapped between controller and keyboard for specific instances. I liked being able to mash a face button when I did melee combat, but when gunfights started, I switched to mouse keyboard just for the precision it offered. No control scheme really feels right. The first enemies you confront feel really spongy, no matter if you're using guns or melee. What kept me going during these encounters was the fact that all of these starting soldier enemies look like the Doomslayer if Doom 2016 was made in 2008. Rodan can block and dodge attacks. Dodging is weird because it's kinda mixed in with jump. If you press the jump button while strafing, Rodan will do a side roll, but if you move in any direction and tap the crouch button, Rodan will go into a roll in any direction. This is how he can do a forward roll, because just pressing jump will cause him to hop forwards. It didn't take long for me to discover the chi strat when it came to melee. If you press the action button in front of an enemy, Rodan will do an elaborate do-si-do maneuver that puts the enemy flat on his back. If you're quick, you can rush up to a downed enemy and press the action button again for an instant kill. What makes this move so powerful is that Rodan has iframes for the entire throw animation. Unfortunately, I couldn't find a similar strat for gunplay. You can usually tell what kind of fight you're in for based on what the enemies are carrying as they rush into the arena. And boy do they throw enemies at you. I fought like 12 guys in one melee encounter. They come in through waves of 4 men at a time, so that's nice of them. If you're observant enough, you can see which monster closet they spawn from in any given area. Some rooms exist solely to house enemies, and sometimes they just magically appear from behind a barrier. At this point, I came upon a cutscene that basically ensured that this game might have a place in my heart.
Поспеши, Родан! Родан, сюда идут еще наемники! На набережной стоит несколько каперов! Это единственный способ отсюда выбраться!
Разве мы знакомы?
У нас еще будет время познакомиться. Вот, возьми КПК и постоянно будь на связи.
I love everything about this cutscene. The fact that these two Doom Boys get taken out by a single pistol bullet apiece, when I've had to empty entire magazines into a single soldier for every fight. This femme fatale, who's definitely gonna be Rodan's love interest as the story progresses, coming into the scene on Travis Touchdown's bike. The fact that, once the cutscene finishes, the bodies of the dead soldiers lost their textures because the cutscene finished, but the game didn't unload their models. This starting area is pretty interesting because it's somewhat of a closed loop. From the wreckage where the meeting took place to the apartment courtyards, to the underground parking area that has this flooded portion and a destroyed fuse box that suggests that this area should be a hazard to walk over, but I can just go in and pick up the collectibles perfectly fine. And back out to the upper area of the apartments, and eventually into an open area, where Rodan meets up with Monsoon again.
Вот это танцы. Ты любишь, когда смерть рядом, Родан?
Нет.
Напрасно. Она очень непредсказуемая женщина. Она умеет играть. Наверное, именно поэтому ты остался в живых. Что ты помнишь, Родан?
Это ты был в здании во время взрыва?
Да, конечно. Конечно, я был в здании во время взрыва. Только я не могу понять, как тебе удалось выбраться живым. Там взрывчатки хватило бы на 100 таких, как ты. Хорошо, последний лорд. Я надеюсь, ты действительно последний.
This is where Monsoon tips his hand again when he taunts Rodan about being the only one who survived both bombs and tries to finish the job by leaving Rodan with the parting gift. This dude owns, I love him. More cryptic dialogue concludes with Rodan waking up from some rejuvenation machine of sorts, with the worst kind of reaction. He seems to have been taken to some underground area. He doesn't have any of his weapons, which is a problem as there are tiny alien critters popping out of cocoons infesting the area. These little guys can mess you up if you let them. This portion of the game is pretty rough initially because you only have access to a pistol. They're not the only threat though. I love this design. It's pretty obvious that, based on the shape of these enemies' heads and the little critters that share this level with them, this entire set piece is inspired by alien xenomorphs. It's cool how their designs suggest that they used to be human because of the human-looking skull appearing from the backs of their heads. These mutants aren't nearly as threatening as a single xenomorph, which is good for Rodan because in a later room, he has to fight what feels like an infinite amount of them falling out of the vents. These guys take their time when they walk, and can easily get caught up in level geometry. They're also squishier than soldiers, but dropping even one can still make an impact on your ammo count. Pro tip: don't go straight for the Gatling gun in front of you. Run past it and the 5 mutants trying to swarm you, and shoot out the locks for each energy barrier. There's health and pistol ammo scattered about that room, so you want to go all the way through the room because there's a cap on how many mutants can actually beat on the field. They'll try to chase after you, but just put down as many as you can with your pistol while picking up ammo, and then get the Gatling gun. After that, go ham. You can tell you're making progress based on which part of the room the mutants are spawning from. The set piece ends once the door on the far end unlocks. I like this set piece and the following section because the game provides Rodan with a double-barreled shotgun that absolutely melts every enemy in this section. Compared to the usual slog that the early game had with the Doom Boys, this was a surprising change of pace. There's always a sense of tension because the critters always have the potential to wipe you out if you're careless, but if you sweep each room thoroughly, you'll be sitting pretty with ammo and health. Once you're done going through Ukrainian Ravenholm, Rodan meets with the one-armed dude who knows him, but doesn't really provide any context to what's going on. He gives Rodan a new ability, brings up an important name that you can learn from the lore scattered about the game, and then immediately scurries off once he hears a boss approaching. Rodan has to face off against the Sentinel now. There's no other way to describe this fight besides awkward. This is a puzzle boss that requires several steps to happen in order to deal damage. First, you have to open up the furnace at the far end of the arena. When you move towards the upper level, the Sentinel will bash against the wall to cause Rodan to stumble. Once the furnace grate is open, you have to break through the Sentinel's shields. It doesn't take much besides 3 shotgun rounds, and it'll jump back and go into a stun state with its forearms glowing red. This is your signal to start a QTE. If you're playing this with a controller, and I don't expect anyone besides myself to have an interest in this game, but hypothetically, if you're playing this game with a controller, don't even fool around. Use the keyboard to do these QTEs. They have very tight windows, and if you beef even one input, you have to reopen the grate and wear down the shields all over again. If you do the QTE right, Rodan will push a Sentinel towards the furnace, but not into it. That's where your new ability comes in. Rodan can use Vacuum, which is a really awkward and probably mistranslated term for a shockwave attack that pushes enemies away. You gotta get close to the Sentinel, and use Vacuum enough times to push it into the furnace. Oh, and you gotta do this 3 times, and each successive cycle increases more QTE inputs with tighter windows. Did I mention how much I like this game? I don't like this part. It's objectively bad. So after this set piece, the game just ends for me. There's this firefight where the Doom Boys from earlier breach the room to swarm Rodan. It takes a comically long time for them to cut through the door. Once I beat this fight, I go to the level exit, and the game crashes. This is the end of part 1, by the way. This is the furthest I've ever gotten into collapse. So if the game feels awkward, has severe stability issues, and runs the risk of breaking my PC if I have the wrong setup, why am I so enamored by it? I love Eurojank action games. There's so much ambition in this game. I love these chunky designs for everyone's armor and the environment art. I love this aesthetic that just screams post-Gears of War. You don't create a post-apocalyptic society with a group of faction leaders and lore without putting any soul into it. Unless you're Bethesda. There's gold in these hills, and it's killing me that I can't progress any further because I know this game will be as entertainingly mundane to me as Eve of Extinction. The truth is, I'm really doing this video just to get all of the things I want to say about this game out there. It's so charming and rough and awkward and obtuse. I wish it had more documentation and a patch for the English version. I can't tell you to play Collapse. It doesn't feel good to play and might actually break your PC. But I do want you to know that this game exists and it's a goddamn trip. Also, there's a sequel, so shit.